Hey everyone, welcome back to the video. Welcome back to the channel. So today we have Radhika with us and we are going to take her mock interview. She has around 3.5 years of experience in Java, Spring Boot, microservices, and recently she attended multiple interview rounds in different companies. So before starting the mock interview, we will also ask her about her recent interview experience, what type of questions were asked, what difficulty she faced, and how she is preparing right now. And guys, if you also want to attend a similar mock interview, the form in the description below. So you can fill out the form and based on the experience and preparation level, we will try to schedule your mock interview as well. So hey Radhika, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, good afternoon. Actually, I am a little nervous because this is my first mock interview on video. But yes, I am excited also.
That is completely okay. So in real interviews also people get nervous. So that is normal. So before start the actual interview, just tell us how's your preparation is going on right now.
Yes, sir, preparation is going good. I mean, earlier I was not very confident, especially in Spring Boot and microservices questions. But from the last few days, I'm following your interview preparation kit. So there are many questions like Java, Spring Boot, and project explanation, coding, and scenario-based question. I am going through those questions one by one, and honestly, it helped me because recently I attended a few interviews, and many questions were similar to what I prepared from that kit.
Okay, that is nice. So you told me earlier that recently you appeared in multiple interviews, right? So can you share
Yes,
a
sir.
little bit about that as well?
Yes, sir, of course. Actually, last week I attended an interview for two companies. In one company, I cleared two technical rounds, and in another company, also I was able to clear the first round. So before this preparation, I was not expecting that I would be able to answer that much. But after following the preparation kit for around 1 week, I got some confidence. Still, I know there are gaps. That is why I wanted to give this mock interview also, so that I can understand where I am making mistakes.
Sure, sure, good. So which company you attended interview? I think Capgemini, right? So can you share
Yeah, yeah.
that experience? Like how many rounds were there? Any question? What type of you earlier shared the questions with me. So but can you show our viewers as well? Like what was the questions?
Yes, sir. There were three rounds. The first round was mostly core Java and Java 8. They asked me question from streams, optional function, interface, collection, framework, and some basic multi-threading also. I was able to answer most of them, not all, but most of them. Then the second round was mainly Spring Boot and project discussion. They asked me about REST API annotation, expectation handling, microservices, communication, and how we handle failures between services. That round also went okay and I cleared it. But in the third round, they asked me more scenario based questions like how we handle production issues, how we design a service, how we improve performance, and some database related scenarios. There I struggled a little bit. I was giving answer, but I think they were not very structured. So unfortunately, I did not clear the third round, but still I feel it was a good experience because with only one round, 7 days of proper preparation, I was able to clear two rounds.
That is actually good. Clearing two rounds means you are improving. Okay, so now we just need to improve few things like project explanation, scenario-based questions, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
that we will cover. So today I will ask you questions like a real interview, and you try to answer them naturally. If you make mistakes, that is completely fine. And at the end of the interview, I will also give you feedback. Okay, that is cool.
Okay.
So shall we start?
Yes, sir. We can start.
Great, great. So, Radhika, my first question is very basic. So, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, sir. My name is Radhika Singh. I have around 3.5 years of experience as a Java developer. Currently, I'm working with Cognizant. In my current project, I'm working on a banking related application. My main technology stack is Java 8, Spring Boot, REST API, microservices, Spring Data JPA, Hibernate, MySQL, and basic Kafka. In my current role, I am mainly responsible for developing REST APIs, writing business logic, fixing bugs, doing unit testing, and sometimes handling small production issues also. I have worked on modules like customer onboarding, account verification, and notification service. Apart from the development, I also participate in daily stand up calls, requirement discussion, and code reviews and deployment support. I am now looking for better opportunities where I can work more microservices, system design, and scalable backend applications.
Okay, okay. So you said you were working on banking related applications, like so can you explain your project in very simple words?
Yes, sir. So our project is basically it is related to customer onboarding. When a new customer wants to open an account, the customer details are captured from the front end. Then our backend system validates the customer details, check KYC information, verifies PAN and Aadhaar card details through external services, and then create a customer profile in our system. After that, if everything is successful, we send notification to the customer through email or SMS. So mainly our application helps the bank to onboard customer digitally without doing everything manually.
Okay, so this is fine. But can you explain me slightly more technical, like what happens when the request come to your system, those things?
Yes, sir. When the request comes from UI, it first comes to API gateway. From there, it goes to our onboarding microservice. In onboarding services, first we validate the request, then we store some basic customer details in database. After that, we call KYC services for document verification. Then we call account service to create the account. And after successful account creation, we call notification service to send SMS and email. Earlier, I used to explain only like we are using Java, Spring Boot microservices, but now I understood that first we should explain the business flow, then technical flow. So I am trying to explain like that now.
Okay, okay, that is actually good. Uh, the that is a better way to explain the project. Okay, so now we will move to the some questions from your project. Then we will move to the core Java, Spring Boot, microservices, and database. Okay,
Okay, okay, sir.
okay, Radhika. So you explained that your project is related to customer onboarding in banking. Okay, so now tell me, is your project monolith or microservices based?
Sir, it is microservices based. Actually, earlier it was not exactly monolithic, but some modules were tightly connected. Now, most of the modules are separated into microservices like onboarding service, KYC service, account service, notification service, and audit service. So each service has its own responsibility.
Okay. So how many microservices are there in your project in total?
Sir, in our complete application, there are around 8 to 10 microservices, but I mostly work on three services. One is onboarding service, second is customer verification service, and sometimes I work on notification service also.
Okay. So can you explain the complete request flow of your project? Suppose a customer submits the request opening form from front end. What happen after that?
Yes, sir. So when customer fills the form from front end and request comes to API gateway, then API gateway forward the request to onboarding service. In onboarding service, first we validate the request like mandatory fields, mobile number formats, email formats, PAN number, Aadhaar number, and all these things. After validation, we save the customer basic details in database. Then we call KYC service to verify the customer documents. KYC service internally calls third party service like external vendor API. If KYC is successful, then we call account service to create customer account. After account creation, we publish one event to Kafka. Notification service consumes that event and send SMS and email to the customer. Also, audit service stores the complete activity logs. So this is the high level flow.
Okay. You said you are calling KYC service. Like, how are you calling that service? Is it asynchronous or synchronous?
Sir, KYC service call is synchronous because without KYC success, we cannot move to account creation. So from onboarding service, we call KYC service using REST template. Actually, now in some new modules, we are using web client, but in my service, mostly REST template is used.
Why synchronous call there? Why not Kafka?
Because sir, we need immediate response. Like if KYC fails, we have to show the error to the user. If we use Kafka, then it will be async and response will become later. So for this case, synchronous call it better, but for notification, we don't need immediate response. That is why notification is handled asynchronously using Kafka.
Good, good. Now suppose KYC service is down. what will happen in your onboarding service?
If KYC service is down, then our API will fail. I mean, we will get exception like timeout or connection refused. Then we handle that exception and return proper error response to front end, like KYC verification failed. Please try again later. Also, we log the error. In some cases, we retry also.
Okay, so how do you retry? Is it manual retry or automatic retry?
We have used Spring Retry in one service, but I have not implemented it fully from scratch. I have seen the code. There we use retriable annotation. For example, if external service fails because of temporary issues, then we retry 2 or 3 times, and after all retries are failed, then we throw custom exception.
Okay, and what is the risk of retry? Suppose you retry too many times.
If we retry too many times, then it can create more load on the downstream service. And if service is already down, then retry will put more pressure. So it can also increase response time. So retry should be limited, and we should use timeout also. Maybe circuit breaker also we can use.
Okay, okay, good. You mentioned circuit breaker. So have you used circuit breaker in your project?
I have not implemented it personally, but in one service, Resilience 4J is used. There we have circuit breaker configuration. The idea is if downstream service is falling continuously, then circuit breaker opens and stop calling that service for some time. After some time, it goes to half open state and check if service is available or not. If service is working, then it closes again.
Okay, okay. So now tell me, what was your role in your project?
Sir, my role is mostly backend developer. I work on creating REST API, writing service layer logic, repository layer, DTOs, validation, and exception handling and unit test cases. I also fix bugs raised by QA. Sometimes I check logs when there is any issue in testing environment, and during release I help in deployment support.
Okay. So can you tell me one feature that you have worked on recently?
Yes, sir. Recently, I worked on one feature where we had to add nominee details during customer onboarding. Earlier, customer onboarding was happening without nominee details. Then requirement came that customer should be able to add nominee name, relation, age, address, and percentage share. So I created new API changes for nominee details. I added request DTO validation, entity changes, database table changes, and service layer logic. Then I also wrote JUnit test cases.
Okay. What validation did you add for the nominee?
Sir, I added validation like nominee name should not be blank. Relation should be from allowed value like father, mother, spouse, son, daughter, and age should be greater than 0. If nominee is minor, then guardian detail are mandatory. Also, percentage share should not be more than 100. Actually, in our cases, only one nominee was allowed, so percentage was by default 100.
Okay. And how did you handle this validation in Spring Boot?
So we use annotation like not blank, not null, pattern, min, and all. In controller, we use valid with request body. If validation fails, then Spring throws exception. Then we handle that exception is global exception handler.
Okay. So which exception is thrown when validation fails?
Yes, sir. I think it is method argument, not valid exception. For request body validation, yes, method argument, not valid exception. And if path variable or request parameter validation fails, then maybe violation exception. I am not 100% sure, but mostly we handle method argument, not valid exception.
Good, good. Actually, that is correct. Now tell me, how do you handle exceptions in your project?
So we use global exception handling. We have one class annotation with at controller advice. Inside that we write method like at exception handler. For example, if validation exception comes, we return 400 bad request. If resource not found exception comes, we return 404. If any internal error comes, then we return 50. We also have custom exceptional classes like customer not found exception and KYC failed exception and external service exception.
Okay. Okay. So what should you avoid while handling exception?
So we should avoid returning full stack traces to the user. We should not expose internal details, and also we should not catch generic exception everywhere. We should handle specific exception, and we should log properly so that developers can debug later.
Okay, good. Now tell me, have you handled any production issues?
Yes, sir. I have handled small production issues, not very major production issues. One time, a customer were not receiving notification SMS. The main onboarding flows was working, but SMS was not going. Then we checked logs and found that notification service was not consuming Kafka messages properly. Actually, one config value was wrong for topic name. After correcting the configuration, message started processing.
Okay. Okay. And how did you debug that issue?
Sir, first we check that the API response, the onboarding API was success. Then we check database, a customer account was created. So issue was after account creation. Then we check logs of notification service. There we saw that consumer was not receiving messages. Then senior checked Kafka topic also. After that, we found topic name mismatch. So we corrected that config and restarted the service.
Okay. Okay. So, and what did you learn from that issue?
Sir, I learned that microservices, even if one API is successful, full business flow may still fail in another service. So we should check logs properly. We should have proper monitoring. Also, topic name and configuration should be verified before deployment.
Good, good. Okay. So Radhika, now we will move to the core Java. So my first question is, what is the difference between array list and linked list?
Yes, sir. Array list is internally based on array. So if we want to access element using index, array list is faster. Linked list is internally based on nodes. Each nodes contain data and reference to next and previous node. So insertion and deletion can be faster in linked list, but searching or accessing by index is slower. So in normal project, we mostly use array list because most of the time we need to store and iterate that data.
Okay, okay. Then why most developers use array list more than linked list?
So because in most real scenarios we don't do frequent insertion and deletion in the middle. Mostly we fetch data from database, convert it into list, and iterate it, filter it, or return it in response. For that, array list is better because it is simple and faster for access.
Good, good. Now tell me what happens internally when array list size increases.
Array list has some internal capacity. When we keep adding elements and capacity becomes full, it creates a new bigger array. Then old elements are copied into a new array. I think the size increases by 50%, not exactly. So this copying operation has some cost. That is why if we know the approximate size, we can create array list with initial capacity.
Good. Now tell me what is the difference between hash map and hash table?
Okay. Hash map is not synchronized. It is not thread safe. Hash table is synchronized, so it is thread safe, but it is slower. Hash map allows one null key and multiple null values, and hash table does not allow null keys and null value. In modern Java, we mostly use hash map, and if we need to thread safe map, then we use concurrent hash map. Sorry, concurrent hash map and hash table.
Not hash table. Okay, okay, that's fine. Uh, so how does hash map work internally?
Sir, hash map store data in key values pair. When we put one key and values, first it calculates hash code of key. Then based on hash, it identifies the bucket index. If bucket is empty, it stores the entry index, and if bucket is already has some entry, then it checks using equal methods. If same key is found, then value is updated. If key is different, then the new entry is added in the same bucket. Earlier it was like linked list in bucket, but after Java 8, if collision is high, then linked list can convert into a tree structure. I think it converts into balanced tree, and when entries are more than 8 in one bucket.
Good. Now suppose two keys have same hash code. What will happen in that case?
If two key have same hash code, then both will go to same bucket. Then hashmap will use equal method to check whether keys are actually same or different. If equals returns true, value will be updated. If equals return false, then it will store both entries in the same bucket. This is called collision.
Okay. Okay, good. Now tell me what is the difference between final, finally, and finalize?
So final is a keyword. We can use it with variable, method, and class. If variable is final, we cannot reassign it. If method is final, we cannot override it. If class is final, we cannot extend it. Finally is a block used with try catch. It is mostly used for cleanup code. It executes whether exception comes or not. And sir, finalize is a method which was called by a garbage collector before object deletion, but now it is deprecated and we should not use it.
Good. Now tell me what is immutability?
Sir, immutable means once object is created, we cannot change its state. So create immutable class, we should make class final. Fields should be private and final. We should not provide setter methods. We should initialize fields through constructor. And if there is any mutable fields like list or date, then we should return defensive copy. Otherwise, outside code can change the internal object.
Okay. And why do we need immutable objects?
Sir, immutable objects are safe because, especially in multi-threading, if objects can change. Sorry, sir. Uh, Especially in multi-threading, if object cannot change, then multiple threads can use it safely. Also, it is useful in hash map key because hash code will not change after inserting the key. String is also immutable for similar reasons.
Okay. Okay. Now tell me what is pass by value and pass by reference in Java?
So Java is a pass by value, but sometimes it looks like pass by reference because object reference is passed. Actually, the copy of reference is passed to the method. So if we change the project state inside method, original object also change. But if we assign a new object to the reference inside method, original reference will not change. So Java is always pass by value.
Okay, good. Uh, Now explain me shallow copy and deep copy. What is shallow copy and what is deep copy?
So shallow copy means we copy the object, but not nested objects are still shared. So if nested object changes, both original and copied object can be affected. Deep copy means we create a complete separate copy, including nested object. So change in copied object will not affect the original object. For example, if employee has address object, then in shallow copy address may be same, and in deep copy address will also be copied separately.
Okay. And what is fail fast and fail safe iterator? Can you tell me the differences between fail fast and fail safe iterator?
Okay. Yes, sir. Fail fast iterator throws concurrent modification exception if collection is modified while iterating. For example, array list iterator is fail fast. Fail safe iterator does not throw this exception because it works on a copy of collection. For example, copy on write array list iterator is fail safe, but fail safe can have memory overhead because copy is created.
Okay. Now suppose you are iterating an array list and you want to remove one element safely. So how will you do that?
We should not directly call list.remove inside enhanced for loop. It can give concurrent modification exception. We can use iterator and call iterator.remove dot, or we can use remove if method also.
Okay, good. Now tell me what is the difference between comparable and comparator?
Sir, comparable is used for natural sorting. The class itself implement comparable and overrides compared to method. Comparator used for custom sorting. We create a separate comparator and pass it while sorting. For example, employees can have natural sorting by ID using comparable. But if we want to sort by salary or name, we can use comparator.
Okay, good. Now tell me what is serialization in Java?
Sir, serialization means converting objects into byte stream so that we can store it in file or send it over network. For that, class implements serializable interface. Desert Deserialization means converting byte streams back into object. In normal Spring Boot APIs, we don't directly use Java serialization much. Mostly JSON serialization happens using Jackson. But concept wise, Java serialization is object to byte streams.
Okay. Okay. And what is serial version UID? Serial version UID, have you heard about that? What is serial
Yes, sir.
version UID?
Serial version UID is used during deserialization. It
Hmm.
checks whether sender or receiver class versions are compatible or not. If a serial version ID does not match, then deserialization can fail. So it is recommended to define serial version ID manually in serializable classes.
Okay. And what is the difference between throw and throws?
Okay, sir. Throw is used to actually throw an exception. For example, throw new runtime exception
Okay.
error.
Okay. Now tell me about throws.
And sir, throws is used in method signature to declare that this method may throw exception. For example, public void read files throws IO exception. So throw is inside method body and throws is in method declaration.
Okay. Now one scenario. In your project, one method is returning a list from database, and sometime database returns no record. Should you return null or empty list? Which one?
Sir, we should return empty list because if we return null, then caller has to add null check. Otherwise, null pointer exception can come. If we return empty list, caller can safely iterate it. So in project also, it is better to return empty collection inside of null instead of null.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, suppose you have to choose between creating a custom exception and using runtime exception directly. So, what will you do?
So if it's a business specific error, I will create custom exception. For example, customer not found exception, KYC failed exception, invalid nominee exception, because it makes Coda more readable. And in global exception handler, we can handle different exception differently. But for very generic technical errors, sometimes runtime exception is used. Still, for clean clean code, custom exception is better for business scenarios.
Good, good. So, your core Java answers are decent. Like you're explaining concept with example, which is good. But in some answers, try to be more confident. Avoid saying I think. Okay, because you're already. If you know that, don't say I think.
Okay.
Okay, so now we will move to the Spring Boot. So my first question in Spring Boot will be, why do we need Spring Boot? Why do we use Spring Boot?
So Spring Boot is used to create Spring-based application quickly. Earlier in Spring, we had to do a lot of XML configuration and manual setup. But in Spring Boot, most of the configuration and auto-configured. It gives embedded server also like Tomcat. So we don't need to deploy WAR file manually in external server. We can create REST API easily, connect with database and security logging, validation, and other things using starters. Basically, Spring Boot reduces boilerplate configuration and it helps us create production ready application faster.
Okay, you said auto configuration. So what is auto configuration in Spring Boot?
Sir, auto configuration means Spring Boot automatically configures being based on the dependencies available in the class path. If we add Spring Data JQuery dependency and database driver, then it configure data source, entity manager, factory, transition manager, and JP related beans. So we don't need to configure everything manually.
Okay, now tell me what is the use of at Spring Boot application annotation?
Sir, at Spring Boot application is the main annotation in Spring Boot. It is combination of three annotation. One is add configuration,
Mhm.
second is add enable auto configuration, and third is add component skin. So add configuration means this class can define beans, and add enable auto configuration enables Spring Boot auto configuration, and add components can skins components from the current package and some packages.
Okay, and what happens when we run a Spring Boot application?
Sir, when we run the man method, it calls Spring application.run. Then Spring creates application context. It scans the classes and create bins. It performs auto configuration based on dependencies. Then embedded server starts like Tomcat. After that, our application is ready to receive requests. That is the basic flow.
Okay, okay. There are three annotations called component, services, repository. So what is the difference between component, service, and repository?
Sir, all three are used to create Spring Beans. Component is a generic annotation, and service is used for the service layer classes where we write business logic. and repository is used for DAO or repository layer. Technically, all are registered as beans, but we use different annotation for better readability. Like at repository provides exception transition, like database exception can be converted into a Spring Data Access exception.
Okay. Now tell me what is the dependency injection?
So, dependency injection means Spring provides the required dependency object instead of us creating it manually using new keyword. For example, if controller needs service class, then we don't create service using new. We declare it as dependency and Spring injects the service object. It makes code loosely coupled and easy to test.
Okay. And what are the type of dependency injection?
There are three types of dependency injection: constructor injection, setter injection, and field injection. Constructor injection is mostly recommended because it makes dependency mandatory and help in testing. Field injection is easy, it is not recommended because it becomes difficult to test and it hides dependency.
Okay. Okay. So in your project, which injection do you use?
Sir, in my project, in older classes, field injection is used with AutoWire, but in new code, we use constructor injection. Sometimes we use Lombok at required args constructor, so we don't need to manually write constructor.
Okay. Okay. So now suppose there are two beans of same type. Okay. How will Spring decide which one to inject?
So if there are two beans of same type, Spring will get confused and application may fail with the no unique bean definition exception. To solve this, we can use at qualifier and give beans name, or we can use at primary to make one bean to default choice.
Okay. Can you give me one example?
Um, Suppose we have a payment service interface. They had two implementation. First is card payment service and second is UPI payment service. If we directly inject payment service, Spring will not know which implementation to inject. So we can use at qualifier UPI payment service to inject UPI implementation. So we can mark one implementation as at primary.
Okay, good. Now tell me what is the difference between REST controller and controller?
So difference between REST controller and controller. Controller is most used in MVC application where we return views like JSP or theme leaf pages. And REST controller is used for REST API. It returns data directly as JSON or XML. Actually, REST controller is a combination of controller and response body. So in REST API, we mostly use REST controller.
Okay, correct. And what is the use of response body?
Response body, so it is used to convert Java object into JSON response. But in REST controller, we don't need to write response body separately because it is already included.
Okay, response body. Okay. Now tell me what is the difference between path variable and request param?
So path variable is used to get values from URI path. For example, slash customer slash 101 here. 101 can be custom ID and at request param is used to get query parameter.
Okay, okay. So now suppose your API is returning 500 error. So how will you debug it?
So first I will check the logs. Uh, I will check the exception stick trace and identify the class, method, and line number. Then I will check if the issue is due to null values database issue and external service failure or validation issue. If it's happening only for one request, I will check request payload also. Then I will try to reproduce the issue in lower environment. After finding root cause, I will fix it and add proper error handling if missing.
Okay, okay, Radhika. So we will stop the interview here. I think we have covered enough questions for today. We'll discuss your project, then your roles and responsibility, end-to-end flow of your project, then core Java, Spring Boot. Okay, exception handling, production issues. Okay, so overall, I think that your preparation is going in the right direction. You are able to answer many questions, and that is a good sign, especially because you said that you recently start preparing in a structured way. So but now I will give you the honest feedback. Your concepts are not bad. The main problem is answer structure. In some questions you were starting correctly, but after that answers become little scattered. For example, when I asked the project flow, you answered it, but you should explain it in more step by step way. For example, first explain the business purpose, then explain the request flow, then explain which microservices are involved, then database, Kafka, external API. Your answer was also good. Most of the things you explained correctly. This structure makes your project explanation much stronger. But okay, second thing is, whenever interviewer asks any scenario based question, don't panic about that. Take 2 seconds and answer step by step. For example, if I ask, if or any interviewer asks like what happened if KYC service is down, then don't say directly that API will fail. You should say that first onboarding service will try to call API service. If KYC is down, we may get timeout or connection error. Then we handle that exception. Okay. Then we return proper error response to front end. Then we log issue. Then if their retry is configured, we retry for temporary failures. And if failures are continuous, then circuit breaker can use. So this type of answer sounds much professional. A third thing is, your core Java answers are decent. You answered hash map, then array list. I asked immutability, you answered that as well. Exception handling, fail fast iterator properly. But don't say I think again and again. Okay. If you say in the interview, you say I think it too much, it can reduce your confidence. So whenever you are sure, answer it confidently, and whenever you are sure, clearly say I have not worked on this deeply, but my basic understanding is this. Okay, so this is completely fine. And Spring Boot also, your basics are good. You explained Spring Boot annotation, dependency injection, that REST controller, everything you explained very well. You need to revise few of the topics again. You can revise security basics, JWT flow, filter versus interceptor, actuator, then configuration refresh, then microservices failure handling, because these topics are very common for 3 to 4 years of experience. And fifth thing is, prepare your project example properly before your next interview. Prepare at least 5 examples, like one feature you deploy, then one production issue you handle, then one performance issue or optimization you have done, then one external service failure scenario you have done, then one database related issue or query optimization you have done. So if you prepare these examples properly, your project discussion will become much stronger. Then one important thing, I think your project explanation was mostly good, so that is fine. But you can explain it in this way. I am telling for the viewers as well. First, explain that what problem your project solves, then explain how the system works, then explain your responsibilities, then your contribution. So that is the correct way to explain projects in the interviews. So overall, Radhika, I would say that your preparation is good and it needs just more polishing. And you are not very far. You already cleared 2-3 rounds recent. So that means your basics are working. And now you need to improve confidence, structure, and add some real-time examples in your answers. So if you do that, definitely you can perform better in upcoming interviews. And guys, if this is exactly why mock interviews are helpful, because sometimes candidates know the answer but they don't know how to present it. So in real interviews, presentation matters a lot. So your answer should be cleared, structured, and connected to your project experience. And guys, if you also want to attend a similar mock interview, in the form in the link in the description, you can fill out the form, skills and preparation details. And if you want structured preparation for Java, Spring Boot, microservices, project explanation, coding questions, scenario based question, you can also check the interview preparation kit link in the description. So Radhika was following the kit, and with few days of structured preparation, she was able to clear multiple interview rounds. So don't wait for the interview calls to start preparation. Start preparing before that. Revise your basics, prepare your project properly, prepare speaking your answers, practice that, and most importantly, don't fake anything in the interview. If you don't know the answer, explain it confidently. If you don't know the answer, accept it professionally. So that is completely okay. So Radhika, all the best for your upcoming interviews. Keep preparing,
Thank you
keep
so much, sir.
improving, and I hope you will crack your next opportunity soon. And thank you for watching this mock interview. And Radhika, we will connect again for the mock interview if you want. You can also contact by filling the form again. thank you. And if
Thank
this
you, sir.
video help you, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who is preparing for Java interviews. So I will see you in the next video. We'll meet the in the next video. Thank you so much.